All right, guys, my name is Nathan Latka. I spend most of my life interviewing B2B SaaS founders, and over the past 3 years, I've interviewed about 3,000 private B2B SaaS CEOs via my podcast. The reason I do it, because the market's big. As you guys know, over $305 billion in cloud spend, eclipsing here in 2018. And this is kind of the current list of the big players, and what I'm trying to do is decode who the next Salesforce or Atlassian or Adobe is going to be. So here's what I look at. The way I decode it is 8 steps. David Skock, I took this from his kind of workshop. There's 8 steps. You know, first off, who do you sell to? And you go from there. These are the steps. This is actually how you grow valuation. Once you de-risk your company and you prove these steps, it's how valuation grows. It's not just a function of you've raised capital and you're worth more. So let's dive into step number 1. First things first, if you're out here right now and you're trying to start a SaaS company, a great place to start, and you look at the most successful ones, is to launch an agency. And you can see here, this is a company called Sales Cycle. You're gonna hear from Dominic here, how he gave up his agency, and his numbers are incredible.
I stepped fully away from the agency,
okay.
So growing at 30% year on year.
That's great. I mean, for a bootstrap company, that's healthy. And what are you at now today in terms of total customers you're serving?
We've got north of 500 customers. We've been profitable.
So profitable, $30 million in AR, again, launched as an agency, sold the agency, now all in on SaaS. Another example, a bit smaller, you have Qbot here. You can see here, they've grown incredible value over the first 12 months in business. Now they're raising $1 million on 4 pre.
Pre-raise at about $4 million, and then have a $5 million all in once the money's into the account.
Yeah, no funding, 9 people on the team. A great place to start to figure out who you sell to and what problem you solve is to launch an agency. Now, once we plot these startups, so I've interviewed about 71 that are less than 12 months old. This is where they fall, and this is a big question on price point. Where do you price? And the trap people fall into is here in the red. Orange Docs is a good example. They're in big trouble, right? Not enough customers at a high enough price point. So you got to either push yourself, way on the bottom axis or way on the up axis, or just generally up and to the right. Otherwise, you get stuck. So let's compare Postalytics to Orange Docs here in a different graph. Customer count on the left side, across the bottom, you've got ARR. Again, if you want a cheat sheet on how to get to $1.5 million in ARR the fastest, you want to make sure that again, you have less than 500 customers and more than a $300 per month price point. You see these 4 or 5 companies in that bottom right sector. I've done that: Skubana, LeadCrunch, CoreDNA, and Postalytics, and this shows up in the valuation metrics. So Orange Docs, again, smaller price point. Churn is obviously a little bit higher, but year 1 AR is materially different with basically the same amount of customers. So Postalytics is now raising right now about a $500,000 round on a $7 million pre-money valuation, which again, all this stuff that I'm citing is all revealed on the podcast when I interview the CEOs. So that's the first step. The next step is kind of what problem do you solve? And the best example I have of this is I wanted you to listen to Michael Chen here with Lumen 5 and understand how he describes his product.
With the style of videos that we're helping people produce at a very low cost, people can now mass produce these videos and test different messaging.
So again, his core functionality, his core activation metric is get people to launch and create a video from a blog post. You guys probably see this from like CNN, you see it go through Facebook. And so here's how tight his onboarding process is. You sign up, you put in your email address. After that, you're then saying, how do you want to start the post? Is it a blog post? Copy and paste your own content, start from scratch. After you do that, you put in your blog URL, and then they say, well, what kind of video do you want to build? Right? They then move into pick your style, they templatize it, and then they give you a preview. So in under 30 seconds, you're getting from basically sign up to value creation. He knows if he does this, your ability and his ability to retain you increases dramatically, and you can see that from the numbers he showed earlier. This is what you don't want to do. A lot of startups will use a screen like this, and it's just paradox of choice. You want one choice kind of per screen, make it super, super simple. Now, when you get your activation metrics right, this is kind of what happens to your metrics. Teamwork, obviously, a bit bigger than this now. They're here. You just saw the founder on stage. Their number 1 activation metric is add a project. This is what that screen looks like. 1 decision, add a project. Number 2, you've heard from Patrick, price intelligently. Less than 1% churn. The number 1 activation metric, again, connect your Stripe account, connect the bank account. Another example, Treehouse, right? They help you learn. They help you learn how to code. And the core thing there is start a course. You can see here, there's 1 option here. Get started on your course after they make a recommendation for you. And then lastly, we talked about Expensify already, right? There's a submit a receipt. You can see screen number 1. There's a bottom-up sales cycle. The employee submits a receipt. They then land and expand, and they've driven incredible growth with very, very low CACs. So that's step 2. What problem do you solve? Keep your onboarding tight. Number 3, does it actually work? The number 1 way to understand how it works, assuming you've got the right value metric, is this graph. The blue line on the bottom basically says churn starts off high and then is tapering off over time. This indicates that your onboarding is becoming more and more successful, right? Your month 1, your month 2, your month churn, 3 churn decreases over time, and that cohort is more sticky. Eventually, you should see it actually hit what I call the churn trough, where your expansion revenue on these historical cohorts actually turns net negative, and you start to get this trough, and they actually grow revenue themselves after you hit that bottom point. And the goal you want to optimize for is make that trough happen as quick as possible and start driving expansion. So that's how you know your product is working. The next question is, you do want to de-risk and understand how many people will actually pay for this thing. And so I want to use an example here called GetAccept, document signing. You guys know the space well. You put in your email. It has natural viral coefficient built in because I want to send someone else to sign the document. So how does this work? Well, very simple. There's a lot of kind of different ways to look at this, but very simple viral coefficient is, K factor equals I times conversion percentage. I is the number of invitations a new user might send out. Conversion percentage is how many of those invitations actually get accepted and come back in the platform. And K is how many new users get driven from, the one user that sent the invitation. So the trick is to get K greater than 1. So let's send out 10 invitations at a 20% conversion rate. Your K is essentially 2. And so now what you want to try and optimize for is how quickly can you run this cycle. It's actually how do you compress the cycle time, which is what drives the viral growth. So, and then again, this is what that looks like. Now, there's 2 ways to model this, and we'll get to that in a second, but it really does come back to cash flow as well. This is a huge advantage. Single customer cash flow, right? You've spent $1,200 per month to get this $100 per month customer. When you do it on a cumulative basis, you see about a 13-month payback period, right? Now, let's look at this when we start looking about viral coefficients, and this is just one model of how to de-risk kind of the founder selling, right? That you got to prove, obviously, you can scale without the founder selling, and so let's look at what viral coefficient looks like in this case. Everything in that pink box is the additional revenue per month from the additional user the first user drove, right? So now it's not $100 per month, it's $200 per month from 2 customers. This is what it does to cumulative cash flow. It takes your payback from 12 months to 8 months. Might not seem like a big deal, right? But it actually does give you additional runway. It gives you more leverage with VCs if you do want to raise and puts you in a better cash position. So really critical that you figure out how to drive some kind of viral coefficient. Now there's 2 ways to look at this. The first model Andrew Chen came up with, right, which is essentially works the same as compound interest. It means every single cycle, every month, your entire user base are sending more invites. Your K factor here can be lower, and you can still get viral growth, 0.6, 1.2 million after 20 cycles. Again, your goal is how do you compress those cycles. The other model was invented by David Skock, and he said, no, that's not how it works. It's actually the Big Bang model, which is you sign up to a CRM, you invite your entire contact list on day 1, and they don't keep sharing each month. So the only difference between the 2 models is continuous sharing or only new users sharing. Here, obviously, you have to have K factors that are larger to get viral growth, but it's just important you understand which you optimize for in your onboarding. All right, Christoph Janz, Point9 Capital, put out this great blog post about essentially 8-9 ways to build a $100 million company. Everyone should run this exercise and say, okay, if we have 10,000 customers, you got to be at a certain price point, and plot this down the graph. So that's what I did. And the analogies you want to use is Palantir, Peter Thiel, he's selling 1 deal for $100 million to the U.S. government, or maybe 2-3 deals a year. The other side of that is WhatsApp, 1 billion users and maybe $0.01 per year. Very different models. You got to understand where you optimize for. So let's look where all these private B2B SaaS CEOs fall on this. And these are all from interviews that we've done. So where's the dead zone on this, right? Down in this area. You see there, if you have 1,000 folks, contract value, but only 10 of them, right? It's only, you do the math, right? $10,000 per year. You drive significantly more value as you drive up and to the right on this, and you definitely want to get above that dotted blue line. So after you kind of prove, again, does that no-touch funnel work? You want to start understanding, can you add customers from different sources? And this gets interesting. So I want to look at dollar-based CAC on the left, which is essentially how much money do they spend to get a new dollar of ARR, right? So this is 60 cents or a dollar based off how old the company is. Now this is bootstrapped companies, 103 plotted here. What you see here is none of these guys are above $1 in dollar-based CAC. Let's compare that to funded companies. Tons of companies pushing not only to a dollar-based CAC, but higher than a $2 dollar-based CAC. Now, why is this interesting? Well, if we look at PandaDoc, which is spending $1.30 to get a new dollar of ARR, versus SEMrush, which is 25 cents for a new dollar of ARR, the reasons behind why they drive these certain things are interesting. And in a world where, ideally, whoever can pay the most for the customer wins the customer, you actually never want to give the answer, all of our growth is inbound and organic, and we don't spend any money on marketing. You actually want to say the opposite. We can afford to spend the most because our economics are the best. You should be pushing actually your dollar-based CAC up as best you can, in my opinion. Let's look at PandaDoc. They integrate into many different app stores to keep their dollar-based CAC down. Here's Makita talking about his metrics. 10,000 customers at that ARPU you just articulated. I mean, have you broken $1 million a month yet?
In bookings, yes. Hopefully we're going to pop up on Salesforce's App Exchange in the next couple of weeks. Experiments that fail. We built Oracle integration and tried to do that.
That didn't work out so well, yeah.
Yeah, how about that for a dumb thing to do?
Oracle's not a sponsor, right? We're good. So there's PandaDoc, another example, SEMrush. How do they keep theirs so low? Again, an integration model. We'll use the HubSpot example again. They've optimized for that top row for a very hot term, advertising. Here's where their metrics are at today.
In terms of paying customers, it's between 30 and 50,000. In terms of scale of business, it's between 50 and 100.
All right, so again, healthy company here, $40 million raised. It's nice that their ratio of AR to dollars raised is above 1. You obviously want to get to that to have leverage. So moving forward, this is what I want to look at next, right? This ratio, this concept of making sure you always have leverage, which means you want to drive your ARR growth before you do a funding round versus the opposite, which is you raise more and then try and scale. You have no leverage in those negotiations with potential buyers or VCs in that perspective. So let's look, we love Jay, and Jay's great, and he's trying to run a big turnaround here, but you don't want to be Zenefits, right? You don't want to have $520 million raised on 120 in ARR. That's not a good ratio to be at. Instead, let's dial in here. So this is a closer up view. You see Looker's interesting, Zoom interesting, GitLab is interesting. Now GitLab obviously recently raised, which changed this chart, 286 companies plotted. And so let's dive into two of these. So we'll look at Zoom first, 145 million bucks raised, north of 150 million bucks in ARR. And let's dive in. I want you guys to listen to Eric here. You can talk about kind of how he's hit those numbers. On average, what's a customer pay you per month?
Either $15 per month or $30.
What have you grown your current customer base to? How many folks?
We have a little bit over 850,000 unique business domains.
Those are paying folks though, right?
Yeah, they are.
If I take 850,000 and you told me earlier, just your smallest segment minimum is $15 a month. I mean, I can multiply those. I mean, you're doing over $12 million a month, right? Significantly more than that?
That's true. Yes, I think your math is right on. So
okay. It's a nice way, right? Like, you beat the hell out of the CEOs, get all the revenue data, but it's good data for the rest of us and it helps. So I don't think he's ever shared revenue before. Got him to kind of share some insights there. But remember, he's on the bottom part of the app. He's more WhatsApp than Palantir. A lot of customers, lower price point, right? Potentially next IPO. GitLab, again, this is the trend you want to do, kind of up and then across, up and then across. That's leverage. So again, Sid's done a great job here. I want you to hear how he talks about his net expansion.
A net expansion basis is over 175%. So if they spend $100 with us last year, they're going to spend $175 with us this year, the same cohort.
What do you like to optimize payback period for?
We try to keep our payback period on a cash basis to like 0 days. As soon as the deal is signed, it should be paid back. And on a revenue recognition basis, the first year.
Okay. All right, so healthy growth. He has leverage going into the $100 million round, obviously raises that capital. And moving forward, so if you look at ARR targets relative to how much capital has been raised, again, you can see here where people fall. That green line is the one-to-one line. So if they're below that, you could argue they don't have leverage. They haven't grown. They haven't spent the money they've raised to essentially grow their ARR yet. If they're above this, they're probably likely to raise very soon, right? They're going to move across the graph like GitLab did. So that's less than 70 million raised, 275 companies here, less than 50 million bucks in ARR. Let's zoom into this little red square. It might be more relevant for you guys, maybe in the $10 million range. This is what that looks like. So again, Bism, HelloSign, Shoppable, Aptivo, Hornet Stories, high leverage companies, potentially about to be, raise or potentially sell or exit. Bottom right, raise too much. They need to figure out how to grow valuation or grow their ARR faster to get above that green line before they go raise again. So just, plot yourself on this graph and see where you're at. Next, if you look at how much ARR you should have by company age, this is 684 private B2B SaaS companies plotted here. You can generally see here, by year 15, they're kind of getting to the, the $50 million rate. Years 5 and 7, it's harder to tell. But if we zoom in here and look at just funded companies that are 3 and 6 years old, you'll see a pretty clear trend here. Averages are really dangerous, so don't read too much into these. But it's a healthy benchmark, and it's really the only kind of benchmark like this where there's actual public ARR data figures revealed. So. That's funded companies. Bootstrapped is a little bit different, right? No big trend here, but look at ClickFunnels. Why are they doing so well? 6 to 8 million bucks in ARR, no funding raise. How have they done it? Well, they figure out how to scale without crazy churn. I want you guys to look at this. I call this a churn funnel. Everyone should have one. Here's my ClickFunnels account. I go there, I click cancel subscription. What do? They say, Nathan, why are you churning? Why are you churning? I say, it's too expensive. You guys hear that a lot. It's too expensive. right? They go, okay, we'll give it to you free for 6 months. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm feeling good now. I'm feeling like yes, right? I click to sign up, and boom, they show me this screen. So he's going to sell me a $997 course, right? A consulting course, which happens to be actually equal to one, basically his ACV, a $97 a month product, but I'm paying it in my mind. It's a one-time like train me course, right? And then I get the software for free. Cash-wise, it's the same damn thing, but I'm now not going to churn, right? And this saves a lot of people for him. Now, if that doesn't save you, he sells based off fear. Right? Now, everyone should have a pause button on their churn funnel. I don't know why people don't do this, but it's very simple. You're essentially saying, hey, if you finalize cancellation, you're going to lose your subdomains, you're going to lose your data, whatever your value metric is, you're going to lose it. Sell it on the churn funnel. And then just say, pause your account. We'll take you down to $10 per month. And then if you want to finalize, come back in a week, right? But if you don't, they'll take you back up to full price after 30 days. Make sure you're doing this in your churn funnel. It drives an exponential difference. It's the difference between 3% churn, which you're flatlined, and negative 3% churn, where you're going to have exponential growth. Huge difference here. All right, and again, we already went over this graph and kind of how that works over time. So how to drive negative churn without upsells? It's impossible. A lot of people don't realize this. You have to have a pricing axis that allows you to drive upsell and expansion revenue to get to net negative churn. If you don't, you're screwed. You need to think more about your pricing. So let's look at how Front App does this. Huge runaway success, European founders. You sign up, right? You create your team account, you name the team, and then you're adding, obviously, additional folks to sign up to your team. This is expansion revenue. You sign up. This was Matilda's year one pricing page, okay? Notice, $0 to $99 per month. This is 2015, right? The next one, they add the kind of catch a big fish option. This pricing page typically also rolls out when you hire your first salesperson, because that schedule demo button are the leads to that salesperson, right? Drastically increase their ARPU, which you'll see in a second. Their next pricing page, they built a system that actually auto-tested the pricing based off cohort data every 3 weeks. This is the current winner. You go to frontapp.com right now, this is the pricing page you'll see. Let's break this down and why it works. 3 pricing axes gives you the most leverage. First, number of seats. Everyone should have something like that. Next, feature-based upsells, basic, pro, enterprise. And lastly, a database or a data usage metric as well. You want all 3 of these axes. Here's front, right? Day 1 onboarding, number of seats. 2, right? You're gonna get email sequences, single sign-on, Salesforce integration. That's product upselling. Lastly, data usage, number of channels. Connect your inbound channels, 15 versus 100. Think about what you would put on each of these axes, because it gives your teams significant more leverage. This sounds like the following from customers. I need more seats. I want more integrations, or I need to connect more profiles. Listen to what your folks are saying, and if you don't know how to find that, do what Front did. Launch a public Trello board where people can put up their ideas and see publicly when you're launching things, and then they can upvote. This is potentially how you discover what axes you expand around, right? So here's what Front App's growth looks like over time. $200 ARPU in 2016, 100K per month cash burn, 200K per month on just solely headcount, but MRR growth 10% month over month. About a year later, 2017, net negative churn goes even more negative, obviously healthy place to be, burning 250K per month, 8 million cash in the bank, so you get a sense of runway there. Really healthy. I don't have their updated numbers because I haven't interviewed her yet this year, but they have publicly said more than 2,500 customers. Here's how she thinks about CAC and these numbers.
We tripled our revenues, and as you saw, we didn't triple the number of customers that we had, because what we've noticed in the past year, and especially past 2 quarters, is we have bigger and bigger companies using the product, because we still have 8 million. So
what are you burning right now per month? Like 100 grand or something very little?
Very little, 250, I think.
Yeah. Any founders in here that have been on the show? Raise your hand. Curiosity? I just want to say thank you for letting me just beat the hell out of you and get all your numbers and data. It helps all of it, but it felt good, right? In the end, it felt good? Okay, good. All right, so anyways, this is what world-class net revenue retention looked like. Again, all real numbers directly from the CEO's mouth. You have expansion minus gross revenue churn equals your net retention. Why is CloudCheckr at 140%? They've optimized for 1 pricing axis. It's a percentage of cloud spend. Listen to CEO here, Aaron, talk about that.
We actually have 145% net retention rates,
on
which
revenue.
is really incredible. But that's because we have customers that their cloud is just growing so quickly that what they used last year grows by about 45% a year.
All right, so that's riding the whale. Another aspect to take if you can directly tie your value metric to, again, a data or usage metric. All right, so once you scale and can you scale and make money? Your biggest expenses, Headcount, right? This is what your revenue per employee should be based off your team size across the bottom. It's about 180K, pretty steady from a small team to a big team. If we go and say, and if you agree, who can spend the most to win, your biggest other expense at that level is obviously sales and marketing expense. So across the bottom here, you see dollar-based CAC. Again, a lot of companies north of that $1.50 mark. Workfront, Talend, iSIMS, which is Bootstrap, Covio, doing a great job. Let's look at Ping Identity here and click in and really understand that data point from their CEO, Andre here.
We spend about $1.20 to get $1 in ARR. Yep. I would say there's a lot of conversations about spending a little bit more at a 1.2, especially given the lifetime value of the accounts is significant.
If you have confidence in your lifetime value, you can afford to push your dollar-based CAC up, and that's what allows you to win customers over your competitors. It's a bad thing to say all your growth is free and organic and content marketing. You've got to prove you can spend money to make money, and this is the way to do that. All right, after you prove these steps, what's next? IPOs. I think these are the next 6 IPOs in the SaaS space. I mean, I don't have any insider information, but if I was a guessing man, this is why I'm guessing the ARR to funding ratios. You see down the middle column there. This is what that looks like when compared to the last 12 major SaaS IPOs. You see they're all between a 0.2 to 1.2 ratio when you compare their ARR to dollars raised. Here's what all the companies that are more than 7 years old look like with more than 25 million bucks in ARR. Again, you want to be more than 100 million bucks or around that to actually have a chance at going public and having some momentum. And again, you want to be less than that where there's some kind of pressure to actually go public and get that capital. So if we dive in here to these companies I've interviewed, again, 0.2 to 1.2, north of 100 million. You see a bunch of companies in there. By the way, I think Hootsuite sells before they go public for 750. I think that probably happens in the next 4 to 6 months. We'll see what happens there. But the other companies, again, when you plot them on the graph, or the pink ones that are still private, I think they go public soon. So we'll see what happens. If you want more data like this, you can grab the magazine. You can also download the entire spreadsheet at getlatka.com so you can run your own metrics, your own data on those accounts. But guys, my name is Nathan Latka. Thank you very much.